Good afternoon. How are y'all? Good deal. Well, thank y'all for coming. I'm Andrew Hughes, and it's a privilege to open this session, Innovative Construction, Materials, Design, and Development. We are living through a period of remarkable change in the housing industry. With the advent of technologies like robotics and 3D printing, there are more ways than ever to build homes faster, more efficiently, and at a lower cost. It's an exciting time not just to talk about innovation, but to put these ideas to work in communities across the country. The construction industry is being reshaped on multiple fronts. Modular and off-site production are streamlining how homes are built. 3D printing is opening doors to entirely new approaches in design and fabrication. And component-based systems are improving the speed and precision of construction. For decades, housing relied on that got really loud, sorry, on a handful of traditional materials, concrete, steel, and wood. Reliable but heavy, costly, and labor-intensive. The need for more housing has spurred breakthroughs in both methods and materials, from recycled plastics and lightweight mass timber to even container-based concepts and other emerging alternatives. These advances aren't just changing what we build, they're transforming how we design, plan, and develop communities. At HUD, we're supporting these advancements through initiatives like the Innovative Housing Showcase, because we know innovation is essential to expanding access to the American dream of home ownership. This panel will explore how these shifts in materials, design, and development are creating new possibilities for housing. And just as important, we'll talk about what this innovation means for families and how it can help lower costs, scale production, and bring the American dream of home ownership within reach for more people. Today, we are fortunate to be joined by 4 leaders who are driving this transformation. First, we have Brad DeHaze. He's the president and founder of Connect Housing Blocks, a pioneer in modular housing solutions. He's been a driver in the development boom in Central Ohio by transforming previously neglected spaces into first-class commercial and residential units. Brad, thanks for joining. Next, we have Gene Edelman, CEO and co-founder of Azure Printed Homes, bringing 3D printing technology to residential construction. Azure Printed Homes has been delivering units ranging from emergency housing, backyard studios, and tiny homes for workforce housing, and to ADUs and homes. Thank you for joining, Gene. Next, we have Jess Luce. He's the executive director of the Structural Building Components Association, leading the charge in component-driven construction. He has worked to promote the use of off-site components such as roof trusses, floor trusses, and wall panels to improve construction, efficiency, and safety. Jess, thank you for coming today. And lastly, we have Chip Devine, who's the senior vice president of pro sales at the Home Depot, helping builders of every size source what they need to deliver homes across the country. Chip leads the company sales and capabilities teams dedicated to serving professional contractors and national accounts. So to kick things off, I'd like each of you to share a brief opening thought before we get to the moderated panel on what's the biggest opportunity you see right now for innovation to help more families achieve the American dream of home ownership. And I guess we can start right to left if you'd like.
Well, thank you, Andrew. I appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for attending. The American dream right now, I think, is at an all-time perilous situation. But I'm really thankful that we have all levels of government all starting to take into consideration that how can they help with the housing issue so we can increase the supply. The biggest opportunity that I see right now is probably the inclusion of artificial intelligence as it starts to really make its way into the construction industry. One of the biggest things that we see right now in our construction companies is it's in the planning and some of the documenting side of the projects, but we're starting to see it being used in engineering and architecture and then hopefully in plans examination at the city levels. So I think how we start to include, all of this thought going forward is going to be really exciting, with innovation in construction.
Thank you, Andrew. First of all, I want to thank HUD team for putting incredible event. This is the best organized, innovative college. This is my third year, and by far, just really organized, lots of innovation. So thank you. And for all of you attending, and I know many people joining online, we cannot expect to really make a difference in terms of deliver housing that people can afford if they do things the old way, right? So there is no reason why Japan makes 50% of their housing in factories and Scandinavia 25%, and we only 4%. So we got to change that. The old ways of just using lumber on the side and bring all the contractors out there. Look, in the last 100 years, the auto industry went from a horse and a buggy, and construction industry does it exactly the same way we've been doing it before. So I really believe that bringing construction to factories, building plans that can be pre-approved. Already many states, including California where we're based, allow third-party inspection and approval. There is no reason why it can't be done all over the country where inspections and approvals can be done digitized. And even now, after Altadena and Palisades fires, the local municipalities are allowing self-certification. So you have an architect or engineer, they can self-certify the plans. That is the way how to accelerate it. So this is an exciting time. We really got to put American innovation to work and make a difference once and for all. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, thank you again to everybody at HUD and, for putting on the Innovative Housing Showcase once again. I think this is our 4th year participating, and, if you get a chance, if I miss later on, go down and see our big greenhouse at the end of the mall there. It's really showing the processes and how, taking the products that are available and using the combination adapted with an additional process can really help drive in a scalable solution all across the country, to where we can really, make the affordability and the availability issue one of those that we can really challenge. And what I like about IHS and the showcase here is it gives us an opportunity to come together, share ideas, and really what we're talking about is an all-of-the-above solution. There isn't one prevailing idea that's going to take hold and be the end-all, be-all. It's everybody working together through experiences like this and sharing their ideas and working together to where we can all tackle these problems that we're facing throughout our country.
Yeah, thanks for having us here today. Couldn't agree more. Really, when you think about making home ownership affordable and reaching the American dream, there's 3 real pieces. Number 1, we need to build faster. Number 2, we need to build smarter. And we need to build affordably. And we need to embrace innovation. If you look back the last several decades, construction for the most part has not changed in the last several decades. So how we start to address that with innovation to break down the barriers on top of some of the other issues that we've heard about regulatory issues and permitting processes that we heard from the team before us is critical to building more affordably. So looking forward to the discussion today. Thank you very much for having us.
Well, thank you, each of you, very much. Brad, first question to you. Modular is helping homes go from blueprint to move in faster than ever. What breakthroughs are allowing you to deliver at scale?
So we do stacked modular apartment complexes. So I think that's the biggest differentiator for us is that we actually can go up to 11 stories tall. We have a 1-story out here on the mall, and that's a 1-bedroom apartment. The big difference for us, I think it occurred about 7 years ago. When you do stacked apartment complexes, the most difficult thing are the fire-rated separations. How are we going to separate one demised dwelling from another and get code to sign off on it? And what we've seen now is that there's assemblies available that have just come out that allowed us to be able to span our separation between 2 units. So that way, we can, when we stack them, all of the plumbing, all of the electric, everything that is in the floor of one unit or in the ceiling of another is actually part of one assembly. So we don't need code to be standing there with their inspectors putting their eyes on it as it's being stacked. We can do third-party inspections, and we can actually do the inspections in the factory. The other thing is, as far as technology for us as a breakthrough, is the integration of software and machinery. So 5 years ago, if I was going to build a steel building, which we're a builder. I mean, I've had a construction company for 25 years, and we do commercial construction. Typically, we would do an order of like steel studs, and they would come in and they'd be cut to length. Well, now what we can do is we can actually have those fabricated in the factory, but not just cut to length where we still have to measure where they go. The software actually will punch the screw hole location, punch the outlet location on the wall, and we can print the entire wall. So then our employees are actually working at tables just putting screws in, and it's kind of like an erector set. So we're allowed to, able to build at an incredible scale and incredible pace with virtually zero mistakes. And that's, for us, variation has been the death knell of apartment building, because every time you do variation, things have to change after it. But the machinery really is just completely advanced.
That's great. Gene, bringing you in here, Zero Printed Homes is pioneering 3D printing with fiberglass and recycled polymers. Can you share how this technology is transforming both the speed and cost of housing construction compared to traditional methods?
Sure. So, when we started working on this 6 years ago, we saw videos of folks 3D printing with cement. And that just didn't feel scalable for California, where you couldn't even put a 3D printer on site. So we looked at alternative materials. How can we 3D print in the factory? And so after many trials, we came out with a composition of fiberglass and recycled plastic. So we not only came up with a solution to make things, we can produce a shell, and one of our units is on the mall, in 24 hours. Again, I also have been a builder for 35 years, and that would take me 3 to 4 months, right? So in 24 hours to create a shell, that's a huge time saving. It's done with a push of a button, totally automated. So much faster. In terms of cost, the costs are uncertain, but this is no different. It's always, all these years, you never knew what the cost is going to be by the time you actually need it. With us, we're using plastic waste. There's plenty of it. If anything, it's been coming down every year we've been in business. So using fiberglass that's very strong and recyclable polymers is incredible. So it solves both the environmental crisis and affordability crisis. And so comparing our units to traditional build, and even some manufactured, we're 20 to 30% less expensive. The unit in the mall here, we use 150,000 empty water bottles. So save all your water bottles, put them in recycling, because I need them. The reality is we produce 380 million tons of plastic every year, only 5% gets recycled, so there's plenty of it out there. So that's how we're making a difference. And
I think I read it was like one of y'all's homes. It's like 100,000 plastic bottles or something.
Yeah. No, it really is a very innovative solution. And when we started, we didn't have this idea. We were just looking for a way to build faster and less expensive, and we found out another, something that also solves the environmental problem.
That's great. Jess, turning to you. Component-based construction isn't new, but the way it's being used today is transforming project timelines. How are you seeing builders leverage components to save time and reduce errors?
Well, they're able to do so in not only the single family but also the multifamily level. I mean, we've got a builder here with us, Chris Tachi, who has revolutionized construction in the Madison market. That he's able to do it. Like, he'll put himself up against anybody, and it's nice to have him part of our team at SBCA and the National Framers Council. But it's one of those to where you really look at their process, and he's got a unique process. And I've been with him in stick framing markets, like in Dallas, where everybody does their building, their framing a little bit different. And that's the thing to remember, that so much of this is localized, and that's why the local codes are important, to where exactly what needs to get built is what is being built in their local markets. And that's what the component manufacturer is able to do. We've got roughly 1,300 locations throughout the country that we represent as SBCA, and that's where really understanding the processes that are happening in those individual markets is very important, and having that information is where we're able to leverage that and to be able to do that. Now, it comes back to, yes, we understand roof trusses are very prevalent, floor trusses are a little bit more, and wall panels, and that's where we really need to look at how do we add value to that wall panel. The roof truss, the floor truss, very ingenuity driven, to where we're adding the engineering, the triangulation. But when we introduced the wall panels, we were like, how do we do this exactly the same as it's always been done? And that was probably a wrong decision at the time. But that's one of the things that we're driving our manufacturers to really understand is how do we drive that value to where we're adding a little bit more. And builders, by and large, they don't want to take huge leaps and bounds and changes. They want to take incremental, just small steps. And we're trying to offer them that to where they have a pathway to where they can do things that are a little bit more revolutionary. But it's one of those, we're able to really drive that point home and help them with that process wherever they're at.
Thank you very much. Chip, with your national perspective, what trends are you seeing and how pros are sourcing materials to keep projects on schedule and on budget?
Yeah, great question. Maybe I'll give everybody a little overview of the kind of state of the construction industry first. Right now, about 53% of our homes are over 40 years old. So we have a real need to renovate, repair, and improve those homes. We also have a need for new homes as well, somewhere between 3 and 5 million, depending on who you ask. So as you look at since 2009 to 2025, there was about 20.5 million households created that were eligible to buy homes, and we only built about 18.5. So as you start to think about the traditional way we build, we have to continue to innovate, as I made the comment before. But there's challenges that we have for all of our builders and contractors. Regulatory issues to speed up the construction process is a big issue for them. Somewhere between 20 and 40% is tied up in fees, permit fees, zoning fees, etc. And then as you think about the biggest gap that our contractors have today to really help them is skilled labor. There's about a 400,000 worker shortfall of skilled labor. So we're investing in what we call our Path to Pro to try to link our respective workers with professional contractors. And we've spent about $50 million in doing this. So as you look forward, we've got to be able to make business better for our pros. We're also in the process of building, most of you know us as a 2,000 store footprint, a retailer. About half of Home Depot's business is actually from the professional contractor. But as Brad said, he knows us for kind of a smash and grab. Over the last 5 years, we've been building out infrastructure beyond just what you see in the stores. We've got, about a few hundred different distribution centers, millions of square feet. So as I think about how do we make building better for our pros, this ecosystem that we're investing in supply chain, delivery, all the capabilities that we're investing in technology to plan their orders. We offer trade credit to really be able to serve them beyond just what you see in the store today. So it's really exciting because we feel we can influence the contractors and make their jobs more efficient and ultimately drive to a lower cost and be that one-stop shop supplier for them for all their needs.
Good, thank you very much. It was nice hearing that. I used to do outside plumbing wholesale supplies at competitor you worked at, so which is obviously we got bought out. So, but anyway,
the world is small in construction.
Yes, sir. Good to talk shop back there. Brad, coming back to you, could you explain the advantages that modular apartment construction can bring to public-private partnerships due to its speed of construction, impacts to the community, and benefits to the economic mobility?
So I appreciate Chip bringing up the gap in skilled trades, and we could talk about that for an hour. I mean, I think that's the largest issue we have in the construction industry right now is that gap. But I'm gonna put my developer hat on real quick because speed to market for us is a huge game changer. So, when we go to develop, a project, our typical apartment projects are $20 to $30 million. So we have something called carrying costs that can easily be $1 to $2 million that we have to bring in additional dollars and reserve money for as a developer. So that way then, we can make the project financially viable. The bank still needs paid. Our investors need paid during that period when we're not bringing in rental income. So if you think about, our project with Connect Housing Blocks, we developed a factory out of frustration, and it was because of the skilled trades gap. But with that, we're able to cut 50% out of the development timeline for an apartment complex. And we just did that in Columbus on a project. We moved 102 units. We moved families in starting at 9 months, which is unheard of. Usually it would be 2 years. And with that, you're saving massive amounts of money that then benefit the community because you can make projects happen that otherwise wouldn't be able to happen. And then that's really the time to market component. The community component is, as a developer, I mean, we're typically a villain when we come in, just because, people say they want housing, but they don't want development. And, NIMBYism is a real thing. We see it all the time. And what we try to do, there is figure out how can we positively affect the community. And we reduce on-site construction waste with our product by over 70%. So if we're rolling less dump trailers and less dump trucks in and out of taking trash off a property, we also park 30% or 70% less on-site vehicular traffic of contractors. It's a real game changer to a community combined with half the construction time. And then for economic mobility, we put our factory in a low-income census tract strategically so we could employ people that currently were on the sideline or had transportation issues to get to where their place of work would be. We have no shortage of applicants. We've had a lot of success stories, and we're up to 160 employees right now, and it's going very well. So we created a product that helps us dictate the outcome and development, and that's been a real game changer for us.
Great. Thank you very much. Jess, another one for you. How are design teams integrating component-based systems earlier in the process to improve precision and reduce delays?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I like kind of where we're going to go with this. It was one of those opportunities when trusses wall panels came about. We were really kind of considered a substitute product. Trusses were a substitute for stick framing roofs, for stick framing floors, walls. Now what we're seeing with some very large builders, top 10 national builders, they are starting to design their plants around the use of components, and that desire to have those well thought out plans up front. And it's easy to complain about other people's scope of work when you're really focused in your own. But what we're trying to do is create those feedback loops to where the people that are making the designs, if they can help things be a little bit easier downstream, that's what we're trying to do at SBCA. But as far as the designs focused around the components, it makes for a much easier buildable product at the end of it, to where everybody has thought through each of those processes and how do they think component first, to where it goes up that much more efficiently for the job site, eliminating not only the material waste but the time waste. And how can you get to the heads and beds that much quicker is one of those opportunities that components really provide, and we're able to do that, with large builders as well as small.
Great. Thank you for that. Chip, how is Home Depot helping small and mid-sized builders compete in a market where speed and reliability are everything?
Yeah. Again, as you take a step back and you look at what goes on in a typical construction process, a builder's going to have anywhere between 10 and 20 trades that they're going to deal with to build that house. So as we think about the multiple product categories that Home Depot has access to that we've been building over the last 45 years, we have a real opportunity to make it very easy for our contractors to build their project. So we're, again, as I mentioned before, we're building out an ecosystem where we can be that one solution for that pro by building the additional capabilities that we have, whether that's local deliveries, whether it's an order management system that we've been building over the last 2 years to make that job much simpler, less point of contacts. Every time a pro has to call a different supplier, it's another point of contact. The goal in building and construction is speed. So when you can deliver that job on time and complete, that's how the builder is going to make money. So we look at this as their opportunity to enhance the way our pros do business, to make their projects better. That, we believe, is the biggest benefit as we continue to innovate. And then we've also, most of you know, we've doubled down in our digital tools over the last several years. We created what we call the interconnected system, where our digital platforms are best in class. So we're spending and influencing how pros plan their project and execute their projects through different digital technology. And so that's going to be a big part of how they drive costs out as well. Lowering the overall total construction cost is the goal, and that's how we try to make our pros projects better.
Thank you. Gene, your company has projects ranging from ADUs to transitional housing for fire victims and the homeless. How do you adapt your technology to meet such diverse housing needs?
Yeah, well, the beauty of 3D printing is it's very flexible. Even if you were to take a look at our unit here, you couldn't create it with a 2x4. You know, we can do curves, we can do interesting designs, and we really can customize. So, yeah, we're passionate about finding housing for the homeless, and so we need to have more federal and more states accept that interim housing is a real solution. You know, LA and San Francisco spend close to $1 million to build a single unit for the homeless. That doesn't make sense. We can provide our units at $50,000 and then have more money for actually services they need. ADUs, again, now 8 states and many states and several municipalities have that right. But ADU makes sense everywhere in the country. You know, you don't need to build new roads, you don't need to build new sewer or other infrastructure. Putting a house in their backyard in California, it's become huge, and it can be everywhere. It's good for policy to just adding housing. It's also great for elderly who need additional income to stay in their house. We do home rebuilds in Altadena and Palisades, so we can do multi-story, larger homes that can be customized. We can just take a plan with help of AI, generate a plan that will use our modules in a matter of hours. We got a last client we got just the beginning of August. They're going to move in before Christmas. That's unheard of in California, right? So ability to use technology, 3D printing, alternative materials, and we need some help from federal government. Prevailing wage doesn't make sense, not anymore. You know. An example, we have a project with the city of Camarillo. It took us 3 months to find a surveyor who is willing to deal with prevailing wage. So here we have a small project. People are on the street right now. They're ready to move in. And the surveyor said, look, I'm going to pay more than prevailing wage requires me, but all the paperwork. So if we have a limited amount of federal money, let's spend it properly. You know, maybe it was useful a long time ago when Davis, when the act was but it doesn't make any sense. So please, let's deal with it.
No, absolutely. If they can keep that up in California, maybe they'll stop moving to Texas, my good old home state. Opening us up a bit, Brad, Jess, what's the biggest barrier keeping these innovations from scaling even faster? Is it financial, local codes, workforce, or something else? And what would help unlock that potential?
So I think financial, obviously, is always like a big indicator. Right now, with interest rates being high, everything's difficult. We're seeing some downward pressure just in the last week of rates. So, hopefully that continues. Hopefully we have a good Fed meeting coming up. I think we're all counting on it. But the one thing that I remember is even when interest rates were 3.5% for most commercial-backed securities, we still didn't build enough. Money was there, land was there, zoning still had a little ways to go, but they got there, and we still didn't build enough. It's a construction issue. It's a construction labor issue. I think those are the things like for us that we look to, with regards to how can we scale. Well, there's business risk in scaling. For us as a company, we went through several of the first cycles of risk, which is, idea, concept, prototype, investment, startup, stabilization. Now we're at stabilization, and we're doing 3 modules a day. We're making money. Now it's kind of like, okay, how do we scale? Well, to do that, you've got to push your chips back into the table, and that it's concerning there. So I think HUD obviously can take a position there in assisting innovative construction and scaling. I think that is probably the biggest things for proven concepts is we put a lot of money out there for housing, and we need that. But we need money for innovation. And I think because the risk associated with innovation is massive, and we haven't been getting it done. So I think that for us is probably the biggest deterrent. Interest rates, we can't control them. HUD can control them, obviously, for their loan products. We can talk about that later. But I do think that assistance and innovation on different construction methods will create a permanent movement that we'll be able to sustain.
Yeah, and kind of to piggyback on that, I think builders need to be willing to tweak their process. And when you think about how much risk in changing the process versus the reward, that's why they're averse to taking any sort of a risk or changing anything that they're wanting to do. If they could be incentivized, and ideally they'd be incentivized through competition, but some other method to incentivize them to try these new things and to start making those changes. And I talk about a kind of a continuum from the most, stick frame to fully modular. Let's get them somewhere to where they're at least moving along the direction to where they're utilizing some of these new technologies that are out there. Now, some are going to fall off in certain areas on whether or not they continue on, beyond wherever they're at. They'll find their comfort level. But it's one of those to where you look at builders and you ask them to change, and the first question is why? And if you don't have a great answer, great value proposition, but you think about it, and I think if it's 10 to 20, different subs that they're going to deal with on their projects, that's a lot of moving parts to try to have any sort of disruption. They are really trying to just minimize their risk and get through it. So when we need to, see some changes, we need to incentivize them to have a little bit more of take a chance on certain products or processes and move along that line. It's not going to happen overnight, but I think if we get them in a mindset to where, okay, I did this year, I can do a little bit more next year, and hopefully, ideally it would be a snap of the finger, everything's changed, but it's not going to be that way. We need to have a long-term approach and really work with the builders to where we can bring them along to where they, 10 years from now have done a lot of different things to where they're adopting the processes and, products that we're seeing up and down the mall here.
Great, thank you. To Jess and Chip, from a development perspective, what partnerships are making it easier to bring these innovative projects from concept to reality?
So, say that first part again.
From a development perspective, what partnerships are making it easier to bring these innovative projects from concept to reality?
Yeah, so what I like to hear from a builder is they've got their team and they really look at it. I've got this analogy that I'd love to present, someday, of kind of the Ocean's 11 approach. Like everybody in that movie had a different skill set, but you required all of them to get the job done. Now, while it's not great to, rob a casino, it is one of those things that we can, try to drive more efficient housing. And through that, that should be where the loot is at the end of the, So really, it's having those feedback loops. It's creating those teams and working together all through, and not just being so worried about individual scopes of work, but really where you can put those together. And we see it with the component world. When the framing labor and the component piece are put together, that's when you start to see those wins, and that's where people really start to take off with their product. And that's where you see things like what we were able to do here on the mall.
Thank you. To Brad and Chip, public-private partnerships are critical here. From your perspective, what's the most effective way HUD and other agencies can support the industry in expanding access to the American dream?
Yeah. Well, certainly the road to housing is a big part of it. And when you think about the government, less is more. And it's critically important for us to continue to take down some of the red tape, the permits that are costly. The process of permitting is costly. As I mentioned earlier, the amount of cost that adds in construction is enormous. So how does the government help us influence that? And then I'll go back to, again, how are we supporting the additional jobs that are needed in construction? Because I totally understand that innovation around printing, around modular, around manufacturing is critically important, but that's only still a small percentage of total construction. So we have to have more skilled workers in the trades, and we have to be able to build more efficiently and embrace the innovation that you've just referenced as well, and have that transparency. And how does cost come out of construction beyond just materials and labor? Because that we know has not changed a whole lot, nor will it change a whole lot. It's really going to be around the process and how we build, and then capitalizing on when we do see green shoots and we do see efficiencies. How does that become the standard? Because again, we're 30 years still building the same way we've always built, and we won't get any more efficiency over time unless we start to embrace innovation.
Completely agree. To Gene, looking ahead, what role can federal government play in helping innovative companies like yours scale solutions that address the housing crisis?
Sure. I think it was mentioned earlier, just pushing innovation so it can be easier adopted, accepted by HUD and adopted by other states. So we're one of the applicants for a grant we need the materials that are more fire resistant. And again, in California, fire 6.5 years ago I lived through, destroyed 1,600 homes. Fires in January destroyed 16,000 homes. So we need to make our materials more fire resistant, homes that are can withstand the disasters, and they're getting worse and worse. Allowing interim housing for the homeless. I mean, I'm here at my exhibit was Dignity Moves, a terrific not-for-profit partner of ours. They're helping San Jose to eliminate unsheltered housing by providing housing for each person who is in the street, so that there is a solution. And then, of course, if they don't take it, then they have to deal with some other way. But just interim housing is a solution to solve homelessness. And anything that HUD can do to change regulations to allow for that, because whenever HUD mandates permanent housing, that just by itself means a lot more money.
Yeah, no, to my first secretary that I worked for, Dr. Carson, who is here today. Good to see you, sir. He's actually the secretary that started this showcase, so good to see you, sir. If we can give him a round of applause. He used to always say, and I know Secretary Turner always says, it's not just housing first, it's housing first, second, and third.
Right.
So, very good point.
Yep.
And then just a quick round looking forward for each of y'all, if you could just summarize in one or two sentences. 5 years from now, how will materials, design, and development innovations change the American home and the American dream of home ownership?
Well, I want to say welcome, former Secretary Carson. It's an honor. I don't know how you snuck in without us seeing you. It's like he just appeared out of nowhere. So I think construction innovation, for us at least, a goal is, the American dream when I was growing up was to own your own home. And I think that holds true for a lot of Americans. But now I think the American dream is, for many, is to live in a safe home and to live in a home that has newer technology to where you don't have some of the aging effects of aging real estate. And I'm a historic developer. We do a lot of historic tax credit buildings, and over time the decay of these structures really make it difficult to maintain safety in buildings. What we try to do at Connect Housing Blocks is to really address the supply issue. So we want to use new technology to build more rapidly safe and efficient housing. And I think what that'll do is, we have a supply-demand curve imbalance, and we've had that for a long time. And I think that by, doing our part to fill the supply, I think, the demand can grow and wane, but it's going to give more people the ability to have safe, new technology overhead. And I think, HUD has some very unique levers that they can pull, and such as with some of their HUD lending. And I think that speed to closing and shorter underwriting periods, I think, would be a huge benefit. And I really think, as a developer and as a manufacturer, for us, anything that we can do to help incentivize innovation, innovative construction methods, and benefit that maybe through some of the HUD financing, I think would be a critical element, for at least for us in the industry.
Yeah, so I came to this country from former Soviet Union, from Ukraine, and what my brother and I talked about as we were flying to JFK was, we're finally going to be able to afford a home, because at that time you couldn't buy anything in the Soviet Union, right? Well, literally both he and I bought our first homes 3 years after we came here. We came with zero money. We got our papers at the airport and no English. I still lack it sometimes, right? I have 3 grown kids, all successful college graduates, and one of them had to leave the country to afford to buy a home. That's unacceptable. We're going to lose our best and brightest because they're going to go somewhere else, and that is not America. So I think we need energy. We need the energy that we've seen on the mall for the last 5 days. Secretary Turner going into every home, talking to us personally, coming, promising to visit our factories. I think he was at yours, right? So we need energy to say,
we're not just going to talk about it. We're going to make it happen. And again, in that respect, we just don't have a lot of time. Let's make this happen. Let's bring innovation. We're expanding nationwide with our factories. Our first one in LA, we're now working to double our capacity there. We have $40 million of pre-orders and don't have the capacity to do it. We're opening a factory in Colorado in about 4 or 5 months. We're planning factories in the Midwest and Northeast and overseas. So we can have American ingenuity. We're using all American products. So again, no reason to complain about products coming from overseas. We have plenty of it here. If we don't have enough labor, again, training people is long term. Let's use more technology. So I just think, really, my message is we've been able to deal with all crises in the past. We've dealt with other industry being in crisis, and every industry you can think of. We're in crisis, and it's not going to happen just the old-fashioned way. Let's get some speed and try new things.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, 5 years isn't a long time. I mean, anybody that has children, that's a blink of an eye. The days are long, but the years are short. So 5 years, I don't know if there's going to be that much that's different, but I yet am very optimistic for the future, for our construction, just the future of housing, and specifically to component manufacturers. What excites me the most is what happens offsite, what happens in the factory. I think the AI-enabled humanoid robotics is going to revolutionize the component manufacturing space because it allows for people to scale in a way utilizing their existing infrastructure. So that's one of the things that really excites me, just knowing how quickly that technology is moving and the price point at which it's going to come in, and really be an opportunity to allow our component manufacturers to utilize their employees that much more differently, to put them where they need them and supplement them with the technology. So while things probably won't look that much different when they're done and in the field, I think what happens behind the scenes, what happens offsite, is really going to take off in the next few years.
Yeah, and I'll close. I think Home Depot has a real opportunity to lean in over the next 5 years with innovation, and no different than how we helped create the DIY category, the do-it-yourself category. We have a real opportunity to lean in and really help the professional contractor. We're the largest material purchaser in the country of many of the goods that goes into residential housing construction. And we just need to finish out building out our ecosystem so we really can be a great partner to our pros, because we will drive cost and efficiency for them over time through different innovative tools, whether that's digital platforms or just being able to be that one-stop solution where they can consolidate spend and build a house quicker and on time. So looking forward to the future, and thanks again for having us on the panel.
No, thank you very much. This is my first panel as Deputy Secretary, so hopefully I didn't look too nervous. But no, I had a lot of fun with each of you, Brad, Jess, Jean, Chip. Y'all been great. I'd encourage everyone here, if you haven't, go out on the National Mall, take a look at these places. A lot of good stuff's happening. And with that, we'll close this out. Thank y'all.